Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Meg Booth. I am CEO of Performing Arts Houston. Today, in our Creative Chat series, we will be talking to an extraordinary artist that is Houston-based. We will be hearing from Kay Prince. We have the opportunity to hear her artistic vision, creative process, behind her work. She is one of our New Now awardees for Performing Arts Houston's 25-26 season. Her world premiere commission of The City Sings, a Suite for Houston, will premiere at the Wortham Theater on March 20th and 21st, 2026. New Now is our program. We started it in 2020 to support the extraordinary artists that are working and living here in Houston. We have long thought at Performing Arts Houston, I firmly believe that Houston's artistic sector is so much stronger than the world outside of Houston gives us credit for. And Kay, we are thrilled to participate with you in bringing this piece to life this year. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, tell us, you actually grew up in Houston and then you moved to Dallas for a little while before coming back. Tell us a little bit about your journey. And I do understand that your journey with music started pretty young here in Houston.
Yeah, so I started playing piano when I was 3. My grandmother put me in piano lessons. She put me in a lot of things. Piano was the only thing that stuck. I went to Parker Elementary. Um, I did piano there, obviously, but I also tried guitar, didn't stick. I played the
Okay.
dulcimer, which is kind of, I don't know, kind of random. I did that. When I went to middle school, I tried choir. I tried the cello, which I really did like playing the cello, but it didn't feel the same as playing the piano. Um, and then I had to move to Dallas because my father's job, and so he told me about the performing arts school there. So I auditioned, and I got in
Booker T. Washington, right?
Booker T.
Yep.
Washington. I had an amazing teacher, Mrs. Flowers. She was, I guess, the first piano teacher that I had that looked like me, and she looked like,
Representation.
yes, she looked like me, and she was good at the thing that I wanted to do. So she really shaped me as a classical pianist, and she always made sure that I was serious about the thing that I did and understood why it was important to be good at the thing because, and just kind of like show up for other people. Um, just because, you don't see that many like young Black women playing classical music.
Sure.
And so she was, very serious about that and very, she was so kind, but very strict when it came to, learning classical
So
work.
in all of your experimentation with different voices, if you will, like the
Mhm.
dulcimer, the guitar, voice, were you always drawn to classical from an early age?
Yes, I was only drawn to classical, and I kind of in high school I was kind of like not shy about it or like not embarrassed about it, but all of my close friends now they're all jazz musicians, and so I kind of always felt like the odd one who like, you know, loved classical music. And I think some people feel like, with jazz, you have a little bit more like, you can express yourself a little bit more. But I don't think that's true. I think that, of course, like classical music, the work is there already and you're performing somebody else's, vision or whatever, but you're still able to interpret that piece or that work the way you want to. So like, I don't know, I've just always been really drawn to classical music. And once I got older, I was able, I don't know how I came across it, but I was able to find out, I think one day I was just kind of like, they don't teach classical music, well, like of like African Americans, right? So
Yeah.
like I didn't know about Florence Price until I got older, or William Grant Still. I don't know if you know about them, but William Grant Still was the first African American to have his symphony played by a major orchestra, and Florence Price was the first Black woman to do the same thing. So I think that would have been really important knowing growing
To
up,
be able to learn
and
that in school.
yeah, and I think that I don't know. I think that more people would be interested in classical music if they were able to see somebody who looked like them doing that thing, or, at least a part of history, but it's never taught.
Representation really does matter.
It does, yeah.
Um, so you identify as a pianist and composer,
Yeah.
largely in the classical idiom. At what point did your music journey move into composition?
Yeah, so I started when I was younger, experimented with a few instruments growing up. I went to TWU for music, and I enjoyed the program, but after the program, I kind of just went straight into teaching, which
Uh-huh.
I really do enjoy teaching. I love just kind of seeing, I taught kids and adults, but just kind of seeing how excited they would get once they accomplished something that they didn't think they could do. For example, like, you start playing piano, you're like, oh, I can't play with both hands. And then you finally do it, and they're so happy. And then they're reading music and they're reading different clefs at the same time. And then I would love when they would go like the extra step and go home and write something and be so excited to come back and show it to me. So I really did enjoy teaching, but I knew that like wasn't completely fulfilling. And I knew that I wasn't a performer either. Like I love playing piano, but like in my home, or
Got
like
it.
for my family, but like to be on stage, I didn't really enjoy that in high school or just college, you have to do it anyway, but I just didn't want to do that as a
It is
career.
interesting that in order to put yourself on stage in front of an audience, you really have to have a passion and be drawn to that.
Yeah, yeah,
And you can be just as accomplished as a musician or composer, but not want to be in the spotlight.
yeah,
And that's an interesting kind of like coming of age as a artist or
yeah.
individual to figure out what part of the spotlight you want to be on.
Yeah, and I think maybe I struggled with that a little bit. So I was just kind of like, well, I don't want to be I do love teaching, but I don't want that to be the only thing that I do, right?
Yeah.
So I went back to school. I got my grad degree in linguistics, which is like, like how is that music
Eh,
related? Right?
Languages, but it is because language is
Yeah.
very musical.
So I
Russian.
focused on sociolinguistics, and I focused on how music and language and culture all go together, and how, we're all affected by that. And I left that program still being like, that's great. I know more about music. Now what, right? So shortly after that, I had a friend ask me if I wanted to score somebody's short film. Because I'm like friends with like a lot of actors and like people who want to write film and like all that stuff. And I love movies, and like I love playing games, and I thought like, yeah, of course, like you play a game or watch a movie, and that soundtrack or whatever is stuck in your head forever. So I'm like, of course I want to do that. It's gonna be hard, and I actually have no idea what I'm doing, but why not? So I did like a bunch of research, and I read some books, and then I got to it and I was like, I still don't know what I'm doing, right? And then, I watched the film a few times, and then I was like, okay, well, I have to start eventually. So after the fifth time, I told myself, think about the instruments that you think would fit for, some of these scenes. And after the sixth time, you have to start writing. So I started writing, and then I realized that I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to go to sleep. I didn't like my phone had been away from me for hours, and I felt
The
like
spark.
I felt like I finally found something that I was good at, but like really enjoyed, and I didn't have to like be there to do the thing. Like I could just write, and then other people can perform it. Um and I sent the music in, and she was in love with it. And I was like, "Oh, like so not only do I enjoy the music myself, but other people are like moved by it in a way." And, after that, she was like, "Well, I want you to do the whole film." And I finished that in like a few weeks. And I was like, this is so fun, but so challenging because I don't know, like, I've only played so many instruments, but like, piano being my first instrument, I only know like I can read bass and treble clef. But like now I had to figure out how to read like a C clef, and like I don't know anything about wind instruments or like really string instruments other than the cello. So figuring all of those things out was really like challenging, but like I felt like a rush. I felt so good.
Oh, alive.
And
Yeah.
and so um after a while, I was like, okay, well, I think that I can stop. I practice for a bit. You have to practice those things and like
Yep.
study scores. And I was like, okay, well, I think that I sound good enough. I'm ready to submit to something. And you guys were the first thing I submit to.
How brilliant. Well, we are so thrilled to support your journey as you evolve. And we're excited to hear a little bit about the commissioned piece, A City Sings.
Yeah.
Tell us where the initial spark came from and what A City Sings means to you. I mean, you've described it as a musical reflection um, on Houston, but tell us a little bit about this particular piece of music.
Yeah. So The City Sings is a suite for strings. It's 5 pieces. When I
And
began,
it's 11 musicians on stage?
Mhm.
Great.
Very small chamber, right? Um, I when I first started writing, I wanted to take how I viewed Houston and the things that I experienced as a child and compare it to how when I came back and how I saw Houston as an adult, right? And some of those things are really silly. Like I was inspired by, the Be Someone graffiti, right?
Yep, of
And
course.
that's so huge. Like everybody knows that, right?
Yep, everybody in Houston knows Be Someone. Yes.
Um, and then things that are like important to like Houston culture, like we love trail rides and the rodeo is very important to us, right? And then some historical things like we're very close to Galveston, so um Juneteenth is important and how we celebrate that. And so I kind of combined all of those things in a way to tell the full story.
Are the five movements reflective of, we don't know this yet, but do they have names? Are they um, kind of moments in history? I know that you don't want to be literal with it, but are they, is it in
They
any way chronological or geographic, or
the titles of the piece, they're not like, very
can you share them
specific.
with us?
Oh, I mean, they're like so like, I don't know. I kind of use my titling the same way like classical composers do. So like, one is called waltz. Like you just actually have to like listen to them. The first piece, well, I will say that when I was writing them, before I started, I did do a little bit of research. I was telling you about Florence Price and William Grant Still. I listened to their work and I really liked how they were able to exist in the classical space but still be able to include their culture and their community in the work. Like you listen to some of their pieces and you're like, oh, like the I Harlem Renaissance, or like, you can hear like poetry in it, and like it's I think that's very interesting that they were able to do that, because sometimes classical music has like these invisible like guidelines that you have to follow, and like it could be difficult to be able to express yourself when you have to like follow a certain like structure. And
Mhm.
so I try to do that with some of my work. A lot of my pieces sound like multiple pieces in one. um and
Explain that a little bit.
oh sure, yeah, so the first piece is it starts off as a duet with a viola and cello, and it is very welcoming but very cold at the same time. Halfway through, it turns into a waltz. You don't know it's a waltz until the end. Um, another piece is about
And these are the
gentrification.
movements within A City Sings that
Yes.
you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah, so that's the first piece.
Hmm.
Another piece changes twice. Um, it kind of talks about like gentrification. I think about like Acres Homes when I think
Hmm.
about gentrification. And so um it seems a little bit sad, but it's really about like, how would you feel if, you're not you your area starts to change and you can't live in your childhood home anymore, and like how would it feel if you weren't able to control the things that were happening to you?
Hmm.
So and then it changes, and then it gets even sadder, even more sad, because it's I wanted to I wanted to feel like, is there hope? Can anything be done about it? And then it then transitions to Juneteenth and how that felt. But between the last two pieces, I made sure to make it seem like there's a little bit of hope at the end, right? Um, I also, when I was writing, I also wanted to make sure I included a lot of silence. There's not
Hmm.
a lot, but like you wouldn't expect the silence to be where it is. I also wanted to make sure I included a lot of movement in some places. Like, nothing ever resolves in some of the pieces. It just feels like it keeps going and going, and like you're like a run-on sentence, right?
Yep.
Because I don't know, I feel like that's kind of
The
life,
energy
right?
here in Houston.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, I don't know, like it's I think the suite perfectly paints the daily life of Houston.
That is brilliant. Would you say it's a love story to Houston?
A love story to Houston. I would say, you know what, I would say yes. I would say yes. I would say that the suite is a thank you, really, I guess. Like a thank you for raising me, and uh like me being the person that I am because I'm from Houston and I've experienced all of these things.
Yeah.
And so many others probably experienced the same things I experienced.
Um, Houston, I am not native to Houston,
Okay.
although my husband is, but I think the city has so much more to offer. One of the things that I have noted is that resilience is something that's talked about a lot, resilience and collaboration.
Collaboration,
There are
yeah.
so many different histories. There's so much plurality here. Um, and I think you're right that just the textures, how much there is to live here is so varied and textured.
Mhm.
As we, started this conversation, representation becomes so important.
Mhm.
You've talked a little bit about this piece, how there are quiet moments, but there are other larger, more majestic orchestral components in this music that speak to the variety of experiences that you can have every single day here in Houston.
Mhm.
I'm curious to hear you talk just a little bit more about that, how, you can go from a solo instrument to much more orchestral sound. And yeah,
Yeah. I just think in general when I was writing, I don't when I think about home, when I think about Houston, I think about community. I think about, you know, when Hurricane Katrina happened
mm,
and everybody started moving to Houston,
yes,
and there was just a lot of culture like coming together, and it felt like everybody was caring about each other, and I think that's like one of the like every time I think about Houston, I think about Houston is so welcoming to everybody. And I think
yeah,
it's such like a melting pot, and like there's so many different cultures, and everybody just loves each other. Everybody loves their music. Everybody just bonds over food, dancing. And so when I was writing, I wanted to make sure that showed up. And so like I guess that's pretty much why I couldn't when I was writing, I couldn't just keep the piece the same. I had to change the piece in the middle of pretty much all of them. They're so even though there's like five pieces, it really sounds like eight.
very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm curious, I've heard a couple of the sketches. Am I totally off that I feel like there are moments where like Copeland, you're inspired by Copeland.
Oh,
Aaron Copeland. Do you think that I'm totally off base there?
oh, maybe I I would say I was mostly inspired by Florence Price.
By Fuller.
Personally.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I did listen, well, one of my favorite composers outside of Florence Price is Debussy, which maybe we don't hear that much in in my work, but also Sakamoto. he he was like I watched some of his concerts, and I really enjoyed how he uses life to make music. I remember watching um some documentary. He was recording like raining outside, or like he really enjoyed listening to people talk. And so I don't know, maybe you hear some of that, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't
I-
know. But I would say Florence Price for the most part, especially the first piece.
How wonderful. I read in part of your application that as a composer, you place strong emphasis on restraint and emotional clarity.
Hmm.
I'm curious to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. And so when I write, I like to write in general about the feelings that we don't like to say we feel, or the feelings that we try to push down and like are so maybe embarrassed that we feel those things. And so a lot of my pieces sound sad, maybe,
Hmm.
maybe just a bit. Um, and I like using the viola and the cello for that. I feel like the viola and the cello have like a heaviness to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and but they're still like so smooth and so gentle in the same this like at the same time. Um, and I think that I really do like the viola. The viola is kind of in between. Like I don't know. It just
It's got grace and gravitas wrapped up
yeah.
all in one.
Yeah, and I just like using it when I'm trying to get the listener to be still and really think about whatever the feeling is. And so I kind of use that instrument quite a quite a bit.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What do you hope that people carry with them? What do you hope that people come away from listening to A City Sings, talking about in the car or feeling?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I hope that after they listen to the full work, I hope that they have a bit of self-reflection maybe,
Hmm.
and are able to address the things that they didn't feel like they could address about themselves. And I don't know, maybe a bit of self-reflection about how they show up in the world. And if somebody was to write a full suite about them and how someone experienced them, how would that sound? Would it be positive, or would it be negative?
How interesting. I've never thought about that, about what music would sound like that represented me.
Hmm.
Um, it's a really interesting prompt.
Yeah.
Do you think that this represents you or really Houston? It's music that represents Houston.
I think both. I think I am Houston. I don't know. I think, yeah.
I love it. Why are opportunities like this meaningful? What does it mean for you to have this work premiere at the Wortham Theater as part of Performing Arts Houston's 25-26 season?
I think that like opportunities like this allow quieter voices like myself to be, louder and, brought to the front. I think it kind of allows you, like, if for me, like, this was something that I kind of just did. It wasn't random, but, and I wasn't fully sure about it. I knew I liked it, but I think that opportunities like this allow you to, like, feel like, oh, somebody else cares about my work. And, if, not that you need validation from people, but like it does feel good to know that, I moved somebody else with my music.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that it tells people, that they care about you and the things that you do. And for me, I think it was a big step in, I still play piano, but my transition from classical pianist to something that I was kind of nervous about. Um, And I think it's a great opportunity for people to see what the new K is,
Yeah.
my new journey as this type of musician.
I wanted to get to this earlier in the conversation, and I'm sorry I didn't. You are also artistic director and or executive director and founder of is it B&W or Black and White Classical Academy?
B&W, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Uh,
B&W Classical Academy is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, and we focus on going into areas where people are low income and maybe wouldn't have the same opportunities or the same exposure to classical music in general. And we focus on showing composers that look like the people that are a part of the organization, right? So we have Albanese, who was a Spanish composer, Florence Price, like the people that we don't ever hear about,
yeah,
is I don't know. It's so weird that, when you're going in school, they want to teach you Bach and they want to teach you Beethoven. But I think it's also important that we learn about obviously people that look like us, but people who were important in certain movements or important in certain times.
yeah,
Um, I think all of that is important. And I'm
yeah,
not sure why we're not taught that more. And I
yeah.
know when I first I didn't learn about it till I was in my mid 20s, but I had to do so much research. I spent so much money just getting like some of Florence Price's work. So, you can Google Beethoven and download it off the internet. I spent hundreds of dollars just trying to get, you know,
Scores.
music. Yeah. It's a little ridiculous.
It is not yeah, that whole conversation of who gets to tell history and what histories get to be
Yeah.
told is very interesting in classical music. So to have people like UK who are actively trying to represent that which has been underrepresented, to share that spark with kids who don't have that readily at their fingertips,
Hmm.
to be creating new works
Yeah.
in the canon that are more representative um, of the world that we live in, and not just textbook
Yeah.
stories. It's really beautiful, and it's a privilege for Performing Arts Houston to support your voice and
Thank
to see
you.
this come to life on stage
Thank you so
in
much.
March.
Thank you.
We really look forward to it. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about this suite in 5 parts that will premiere in 3 months?
No, I hope everyone enjoys it. I think it will be a journey, but I think that once you get to the end that you have a little bit of self-reflection and you go home and you'll think about you'll think about everything. I don't know. I'm excited to share it with everyone.
I want to encourage everybody to go to KaylenPrince.com. It's your full name, Kaylen, not just K. We speak to you with your name Kay, but your full name, Kaylen, is your address. Links to a lot of the music that you've composed, beautiful music.
Thank you so much.
Um, we hope that everyone goes to performingartshouston.org and gets tickets. It's pay what you can. So if you want to give 0 cents to this, and or if you want to support artists in Houston and the ability to see them on stage, you can pay what you want. March 20th and 21st at the Wortham. Kay, thank you for being with us today. We so appreciate um, your participating with us in this journey to bring this wonderful piece to stage. We can't wait to listen to it.
Thank you for having me.